The following is an HCPSS TV special presentation.
Hi, I'm Brian Bassett with the Howard County Public School System. Welcome to HCPSS Insight, a live opportunity for you to interact with school system representatives and even national experts on issues that are important to the HCPSS community. Today we want to hear from you about the newly redesigned SAT. In order to remain a highly relevant measure of college success, the SAT is changing to better reflect what students are being taught in today's classrooms. Beginning in March 2016, test takers will see many changes, including a new optional essay, modern vocabulary, and no penalty for wrong answers. Today's session is designed to help you better understand the changes that are coming to the College Board's suite of assessments, including the SAT and PSAT. This is a question and answer session in which you can submit your questions in a variety of ways. The first is by Twitter. Tweet your questions using the hashtag HCPSSinsight to submit a question. And remember to include the hashtag on your tweet or it won't appear in our feed. The other way to submit a question is by emailing it to insight@hcpss.org. As questions are submitted, we'll do our best to combine similar questions so we can cover as many as we possibly have time for. I have an extraordinary panel of experts with me today to answer your questions. Dr. Henry Johnson is the Maryland State Department of Education Deputy Superintendent of Teaching and Learning and Chief Academic Officer. Stacy Caldwell is the College Board Vice President of College Readiness Assessments. And Cammie Wagner is a resource counselor with the Howard County Public School System. Thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you. So let's jump right in. And Stacy, we'll start with you.
Great.
The first question that we have, and we've had some questions pre-submitted, and I've got a couple questions myself that I've prepared for you, just in case we run it. Yeah, users are enjoying our questions. So number one, what are the key differences between the current SAT and the redesigned SAT?
Sure. So I'll start with just a little bit of context. In setting out to redesign the SAT, we really took a look at our data, which has been unchanging over the last 5 to 10 years. And what that data showed is that when you look nationally, far too many of our students are graduating from high school not ready to go off and be successful in college. So they're graduating from high school and they're going off and they're needing some sort of remedial support when they get to college. So we looked at our work at the College Board and said we really have a couple goals. One is to do our part to ensure more students graduate high school ready to go. And then when students have done that hard work, that we are doing everything we can to support them taking advantage of those opportunities. So when we look at those two goals, that is the context where we set about to do the redesign. The redesign of the SAT, the key goal that we set there was that we would focus the SAT on exactly the skills that matter most for student success in college. So the research is pretty clear. There's a set of skills that matter more than others in terms of student success across a range of courses in their first year of college. And so we focused the design of the SAT on exactly those skills. And then we were as transparent as we could be about what that actually meant. So a full 2 years before the test, we published the test specifications. We would love if every student, parent, and teacher in the country were able to use those resources and they could look at that and say, I know exactly what's on the test, how many questions, of what type, with what difficulty, covering what concepts. So the goal really was to say, look, if we're focused on the right skills and we're incredibly transparent about what those skills are, preparing for the SAT therefore becomes preparing for success in high school and success in college. And so we wanted to make those two things, make those 2 to 3 things line up better than they have maybe in the past. So in terms of what that translates to and what's changing, you mentioned a couple in your intro, but here's what it translates out to. In terms of reading, it means we're focused on words in context and a command of evidence. So words in context means no more of the obscure SAT vocabulary words. Instead, it will be focused on academic words that students will use over and over and over again. A command of evidence is the ability to do close reading, the sort of reading that you'll be asked to do in college and to pull out data and information.
Stacy, let me just jump in real quick. If we could bring up slide 1. I think you're referring to a number of the items that we have in slide 1.
Absolutely, thank you.
I'm sorry.
So in terms of reading tests, those are sort of the two key changes. From a math perspective, we focused in on the math that matters most. So this would be problem solving and data analysis, so numerical literacy. It would be command of algebra, heart of algebra. Think about that as linear equations. Can you put them together, manipulate them, apply them? And then what we're calling passport to advanced mathematics, which is systems of equations and some of the more advanced concepts. A couple of the other things that tend to come out, you mentioned no more penalty for guessing. We want students to be focused on the content that is there in the test as opposed to thinking about how to sort of whether or not they should answer the question.
And that seems popular.
Indeed. That is, from a student perspective, that is one of the more popular. The other one is that the essay, in addition to being a sort of new format, is also optional. So we get good student response to both of those.
I'll bet you do. Great. Thank you. A great overview.
Thank you.
That was important. Henry, I'm going to pitch this one to you, but this we might have other responses.
Okay.
And I've heard this asked by the community in the past. Is the newly redesigned SAT tied to the Common Core standards?
Well, I think that based upon the explanation that Stacy offered, you will see some of the same skills and concepts expected on the redesigned SAT in the curriculum and in the instructional practices in the classroom. I think that's the wonderful thing between the two entities. The Common Core has particular standards, and those standards are in fact aligned to the SAT, and the SAT is aligned to those Common Core standards. So if students and teachers are prepared according to the standards that we teach in Maryland, then there should be no reason why they should not find success when they are taking the new SAT.
The PSAT was also redesigned, right, Stacy?
Yes.
Indeed.
So let's talk about what the redesign impacts on the PSAT, and then how that transitions students from the PSAT to the SAT.
Sure, absolutely. So with the redesign and some of that context, I think another important piece to keep in mind is college readiness is not a point in time. It builds over time. And so we took the redesign of the SAT and that sort of focus on those skills that matter most for success in college, and then we worked backwards and said, okay, let's make those same set of skills that are important, put them into grade appropriate context beginning as early as 8th grade and connect those as a system. So there are 3 assessments, all of which focus on that same content domain. The PSAT 8-9, so given to 8th and 9th graders. The PSAT NMSQT, that is the National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test, a co-sponsored assessment that students take in the 10th and 11th grade, and then the SAT. So the content domain is the same across them. They are also on a vertical scale. What that means is a score on one test would be the equivalent achievement to a score on another test. So a 500 is a 500 is a 500, and you're able to very easily see as you move between a PSAT 8-9, a PSAT NMSQT, and an SAT, how students are progressing and what that growth is. And if I can just add one comment to the Common Core questions, I do think your point around students doing the work in the classroom, this should be very familiar to them. Yes, absolutely. One of the things we're doing as we report out results is that we will tie subscores back to each state's standard. So in Maryland's case, the Common Core, but the way that Maryland refers to the Common Core standards, that will be tied to the subscores, which should, we're hoping that gives educators a chance to tie into the daily work that they're doing.
Good.
Especially on those earlier tests, the PSAT 8-9
Exactly.
and the PSAT NMSQT. It should really help teachers to understand exactly where their students are and where they need to go in order to gather the success that's needed on the SAT. Yeah.
So the PSAT, the new PSAT was just
Administered.
recently, right?
Yes.
So,
Last week.
so Cammie, have we heard any feedback locally on the Howard County level from that test?
Not too much. I think part of it is because most of the students who took it didn't take the other one, although I guess our 11th graders did.
Okay.
The general feedback was it was long, but I think that's probably what you guys expected. It is a little bit longer than last year. The scores don't come out until December, so I think we'll get a lot more feedback then, but so far that's what we've heard.
How about statewide? Any feedback?
No, actually, we haven't heard any feedback. I mean, I think that we found that many more students probably this year were taking the new PSAT than perhaps in years past. And the reason for that, as you know, Maryland does have law in place that requires our students to be college and career determined by the end of the 11th grade. And many more of our districts are using the PSAT as one of the indicators to determine where students need to be and where they are and where they need to go in order to have that determination by the end of grade 11.
Cami, give us just a breakdown of the times of year that the PSAT and the SAT are administered.
Sure. The PSAT is given in October every year, and in Howard County it's offered in every high school to all 10th and 11th graders every October. The SAT is offered 7 times throughout the school year during school year months on Saturdays. So it's spread out throughout the year, and students can elect to choose which one's best for them.
You said the feedback was that it's long. How long does it take to complete the PSAT? We'll start with the PSAT.
I believe the PSAT is 3 hours.
2 hours and 45 minutes of testing time when you add a little bit of break time in there. Yes.
Yep.
And Stacy, how about the SAT?
So the SAT is 3 hours without the optional essay, and then add another 50 minutes with the optional essay. So that brings you to about just under 4 hours.
So the optional essay, you opened it. Let's go there.
Okay.
Why is the essay optional? What was the decision behind that?
Sure. So this was the College Board is a membership organization, and when you think about, especially from an SAT perspective, where the test came from and who uses the test, higher ed institutions take a look at the test. And so in conversation with our members and the ways that they were using it for admissions decisions, we found there was a pretty wide variance. So the decision was really as simple as, let's put the decisions back in the hands of folks who are making these decisions about whether or not to use it. And then let's not require students to do something if they're applying all to universities who are not using that information. So let's make assessment useful. If it's not useful, why are we forcing the students to do it? So put the decision in the hand of the admissions officers from the range of higher ed institutions. At the same time, and if I can speak a little bit about the design of the essay, we're actually pretty excited about the update to the design of the essay. So as most of you likely know, the essay on the current SAT gives a prompt, gives a paragraph, sort of does a little bit of a setup, and then asks students their opinion about an issue. And students are requested to write through their perspective on that. But because of the way that's set up, students can make up facts and do those sorts of things, and it's counted. We're not looking for factual accuracy, we're looking for their ability to write. What we're moving to is something that's much more closely aligned to the sort of work that students will be doing in college. So the question and the prompt for the essay will be unchanging. What is changing is its source material. So we will ask students to read source material. This would be a sort of a real-world text, oftentimes a published text that students will be asked to read, and then they'll be asked to analyze what the author did in that passage. How well did they support their arguments? How data-based were they in their arguments? And so the students are both asked to analyze that and then write about that in their essay. So again, we've had tremendously good response from writing faculty in higher ed institutions that this actually gets really close to something that they ask students to do. We've also gotten good response from high school teachers. History, social studies teachers look at that and say, oh, I could use that as an exercise for text that we read in a classroom. So we're excited with what we've done. We've seen thus far, we are posting data about where colleges have made decisions. We're posting that next to our registration site. We continue to update that relatively regularly. We're seeing about right now, 20 to 30% of colleges saying, yes, we're going to require the essay. And I'll pass back to Cami here, but typically what that means is for many students, at least one of those institutions will be within the set of schools that they're applying to. So in terms of number of students taking it, we're getting a much higher percentage that are thinking they'll take it with the essay.
Yeah, how are we guiding students? And I'll ask both of you, Henry and Cami, how are we guiding students in terms of the essay? Are we guiding them to prepare to take it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the classroom, use your opportunities. If other classes are giving you prompts like that, definitely use it to prepare, because even if you don't take it on the SAT, you're probably going to use it in college and beyond. So I would definitely say prepare for it. Whether you choose to take it, you need to look at the colleges that you're interested in. If you're not sure, then call around. There is a link on the website, on the College Board's website, with the list of colleges. It looks like most of them say don't require or recommend, and I would guess that will change once they start seeing scores and seeing how it impacts them. But I would say definitely to defer to the colleges that you're interested in to whether to take it or not.
The one thing that I like about it is the unchanging concept, the fact that everything remains the same except for the text itself. So even if you are a 9th grader or a 10th grade teacher, you can still help the students to practice in preparation for it by using that same concept, and it reinforces the instruction that's going on in the classroom. But the other thing it does is also it prepares the students for our state assessment as well, because that same type of activity and that same type of prompt will be on our PARCC assessments in grades 9, 10, and 11 for those districts that choose to administer it at those levels. The 10th grade assessment, which is required, would be a good opportunity for our students to begin that early practice and preparation for the SAT.
Can you give us any insight, Stacy, of what the prompts may look like?
So the prompt itself is published, and do we have it? I'm not sure if we have it.
I don't think I
in the resource guide, but we do have it in the collegereadiness.collegeboard.org. You can go in there, get the test specifications, and we do have the prompt actually published. There's a pre-read that says, analyze this essay. There's a question that asks you to evaluate the essay based on 3 or 4 dimensions. We also have 3 or 4 examples of the sorts of texts that students will be asked to evaluate on the website.
Questions are coming in.
Okay.
Okay, so let's jump into some of these questions. And I'll ask this one. It looks like it came in from a Howard County teacher. And Cammie or Henry, whoever would like to take this, and I'll read it as it was asked. Given the emphasis on statistics, data analysis, and substantial absence of geometry, is there any thought of adjusting the curriculum that we're teaching, I guess, to align to what is going to be tested on the SAT?
Well, I think it's important to note that the curriculum is developed by the individual districts here in Maryland. So if that is an approach that Howard County would like to take in the development of its curriculum for geometry or for Algebra 2, then I think that's something they need to discuss, as long as those indicators within the curriculum are aligned to the Maryland College and Career Ready standards in preparation for those students who may take the geometry PARCC exam or the Algebra 2 PARCC exam.
I know here in Howard County the math office has dug in a lot to the curriculum and to how it's tied to the SAT. So I think we'll be looking at that. I don't think right now there's a decision, especially because geometry is a graduation requirement. So kids have to take it no matter what. But I guess the timing is something that we need to consider.
Good, thank you both.
Sure.
Stacy, can a student take the redesigned SAT more than once? And if so, what's the benefit? Another user question.
Sure, certainly. Just as students can do now with the SAT, they can take the redesigned SAT more than once. The first administration of the redesigned SAT will be in March of 2016, so this coming spring, and that is a sort of hard cutover. So October, December, January, those are all current SATs. Beginning in March, we have the redesigned SAT, and then that will continue forward with the 7 administrations that Cammie mentioned. We see students do a range of things. So about half of our students that take the SAT, if you look at each cohort, it's just under half, about 45% of them take it once. And then you see a number of students taking it 2, 3, and sometimes even more times. It depends on what a student's goals are. Certainly depending on how much pre-work you've done, how much test familiarity there is for an individual student. Students may find that after the first one they feel more familiar and they feel more prepared for a second one, and they choose to take it a second time. Any advice that you typically
Yeah,
give?
I would say from a counselor perspective, use the PSAT as your starting point.
Right.
You have great results. There's going to be a ton of information that comes to students and parents in those reports that come out in December. Look at those and use those as your starting point. If you don't do any preparation from that, then your scores may not change very much. So if you can use the information there and prepare, then take it one time and see how you do. If you do well, then there's no need to take it again. Or if you feel like you're meeting the benchmarks for the colleges that you're interested in, then you're fine. If you are intending to do more preparation and practice, yes, having sat for it once is some preparation, but digging in and doing some additional work, more reading, more math skills, building those skills is what's going to make you do better the next time. Just sitting for it again, your scores may go up some, but you have to put some work in for the scores to go up.
Let me follow up with this. We just had another HCPSS Insight session on NCAA academic eligibility requirements. And one of the things with the NCAA is that the more times you take it, they're going to take your best scores from each section. Is that still happening?
We think colleges will still super score. They call that by taking sections from different administrations. I've heard kind of anecdotally, they probably won't super score across tests. So if you take the old test now and you take the new score in March, they're probably not going to take your math section and your English section and combine them. Is that kind of what you're hearing?
People are doing a range of things, but I think that's pretty consistent with what we're hearing as well.
I think we will see concordance tables that will compare the tests and the ACT as well, coming out in May.
In May, yes.
After the March administration is given. So there will be opportunity to compare. But the other thing I've heard a lot from colleges is they want to give students the benefit of the doubt. They are not interested in penalizing students and looking for the bad parts. They want to help kids, and they understand that this is a challenge, particularly for the junior class. So if you have questions, reach out to those colleges, but I feel very confident that they have the students' best interest in the test scores.
Good. Henry, did you have something to follow up there?
No.
Okay.
No.
We had another question come in.
Okay.
And I wanted to direct this to you. It may be a question that we need to get back to this user on. But it's similar to the last one. Recognizing that the SAT, this redesigned SAT, has a much lower focus on geometry. Does the state plan on changing Kumar's language for our current geometry course?
I would not say that the state has any plans to change any of the language for Kumar at this point in time. I think one of the things we always like to do is wait until we get through the administration of whatever the new set of standards are, as well as the assessments are aligned to those standards, and then make decisions from there. We just made changes to Kumar language last year when we added the requirement for 4 years of mathematics. And so we take a look at all of the Kumar language related to the individual subjects and topics at least once or twice a year. And so we will do that after we have a full complementary administration of all of our PARCC assessments, as well as the SAT and the ACT.
I'll follow up with this one.
Okay.
This will be a quick one. Is there any connection between PARCC and the SAT?
Cammie talked about the concordance tables, and of course we'll be waiting for that, but the first administration of the new SAT has not occurred yet, so we won't have an opportunity to do any of that work until after the first administration.
Okay. Let's talk preparing for the SAT. And Cammie, how is your office guiding counselors in our system for preparing students? Should they be preparing differently than on past tests? Are there any test-taking strategies that maybe has changed because there's no penalty for wrong answers? What are some of the things that we're doing as a county to prepare our students?
Well, I think no penalty for wrong answers is a big one, because it takes the game and some of the strategy out of the test, which is great for kids. It's more straightforward. They're testing what you know. So if you know it, answer it. If you don't, then you can still guess. Try to answer every question. I think counselors are learning, as everybody is, about the new test. So I think as more comes out and as we get closer to March, there'll be more to share. But I do think students can prepare by doing well in school. That's the good news, is there's not a ton of outside stuff that you have to do. And that's really, I think, about the access that College Board is providing. So College Board, and I'm sure you can talk more about this, but College Board is partnered with Khan Academy, which is free access to test preparation, and it will be tied to, if you create an account, it will be tied to any results you have. So when the PSAT results come out, if you haven't already created a Khan Academy account, you can create one, and it will have a personalized plan of test preparation for you. So if you're already really good at something that you're doing on the SAT or the PSAT, then you can move on to what you're not doing well and focus on, not only is it going to help you on the SAT, but it should help you for college readiness, which is great news.
So we have a slide 4 that we can put up here in just a moment. It's got the link to the Khan Academy
Perfect.
resource. So, but
Perfect.
Stacy, talk a little bit about how that relationship with Khan Academy was created.
Sure. I will get there. I want to just double down on something that Cami said, which is the best preparation for the SAT is taking high quality courses, working hard in them, doing that work every single day. I think that's such an important point. So I just wanted to say amen to that. In terms of supporting that daily work that's going on in the classroom, coming out in December, when the students get back their score reports, we are also launching 2 new tools. So these are online reporting portals, one for students and one for educators. And these, we believe, will be really rich tools that allow students, teachers, counselors to dive into what just happened on the PSAT, understand exactly what those skills are, where students are showing strength, where they're showing areas that they need to work on, and we'll have that direct connection back to what's going on in the classroom. So wanted to mention that. Now, getting to Khan Academy, your actual question, apologies.
Your 30 seconds are almost up.
I know. So we, a couple years ago, announced a partnership with Khan Academy to deliver world-class test preparation that just happens to be free. And so the idea here is that we wanted the highest quality resources to be available to all students. So we've worked with them over the last 2 years. They've been a tremendous partner. If you pull up the slide, which you have, if you go to khanacademy.org/SAT, or you can go to satpractice.org. Both of those will get you there. That gets you to the official SAT practice. This is a combination of well built out Khan resources, practice questions, tutorials, as well as we've integrated the official SAT practice test. So Cami did a nice job of describing it, but for every student that just took the PSAT, when they get their scores back, what they can do is link their accounts. So they'll have a College Board account and a Khan Academy account. You link those accounts, and if a student says, yes, I'm willing to send my information over to Khan Academy, we will send over not just their scores on the sections and the sub-scores, but how they did on every single question, what their answer was, what that question covered, how difficult it was. Khan Academy will take all that information and
do their work.
Do their work. They will.
Yeah.
The algorithm will very quickly come up with some personalized supports for them. So they will then be asked to focus in on exactly the skills that they need support in. So this is not certainly in any way a replacement for the work that's going on in classrooms, but we see it as a really strong supplement, and are working with community organizations as well as schools and districts to figure out good implementation models that support the work that's going on in the classroom.
Good.
I would also say that in our county specifically, I know, and many others probably as well, focusing on first instruction of a topic for students, we're providing a lot of resources for the SAT prep class that we offer in our high schools. So students can take a half or full credit class during the school day to prepare, and hopefully, I'm sure they'll be using the Khan Academy resources a lot. But also we have the HCPSS Family Math Resource Center, which is a website that families can go to and get other resources, other support for math. And then specifically in our English 10 and 11 classes, those teachers are being provided a lot of resources to help students prepare for these changes in addition to others.
You realize we were born about 20 years too late.
Yes.
Right.
I could have used all of these.
Yes, I know. I know.
My test scores would have been much higher. I'm not going to share on this program what my SAT score was. Henry,
Sure.
current seniors, which SAT should they take? Because they have the option of both still, right?
Yeah, they do have the option of both, but I'm sure Cami will agree that it's probably best for most students to take the SAT in their junior year, and that way they can have an opportunity to prepare in preparation for college admission their senior year. But if they're going to choose to take the redesigned SAT their senior year, they need to take it in the fall. Because college and universities start that process of admission in November, December. And so one of the things I hope that they did do, if they are one of those students that's taking the SAT in the fall, is my hope is that they took the new PSAT this past October, which will give them an opportunity to gather that information from that test to be able to do the test prep through the Khan Academy in preparation for the SAT that they will take in the fall. That's the best case scenario for those seniors who are going to take the exam in the fall.
Okay. Are there, and just following up, are there any schools, Cammie, that you've heard of that are only accepting the scores from the new SAT or only accepting the scores from the old SAT?
So I think for seniors, the old SAT is probably their best bet because they're applying now and they've probably already taken the test. Okay. So I haven't heard anything from colleges about the current seniors. I'm assuming they're all expecting them to take the old one. The juniors, the only school I've heard from, and maybe you've heard from others, I know Virginia Tech only wants the redesign for the current junior class. So anybody who is a current junior should not, if they're interested in Virginia Tech, you don't even have to worry about taking it between now and March. Just focus on the new one starting in March.
Have you seen anything, Stacy?
So Virginia Tech is the one example that we have of somebody who's and made a thoughtful decision around we're going to have a clean cutover, one for one and one for the other. The vast majority of schools are saying we'll accept both, and they'll accept both directions. I think what Cammie just said is right. For seniors, the vast majority of this year's seniors will be taking the current SAT. We'll probably have a few that end up taking the early, the sort of March, May versions of the redesign. For the junior class, the vast majority beginning this spring will be taking the redesigned SAT, but some of them will have already taken the current version. Colleges, for the most part, and we talk to higher ed institutions every day, for the most part they're going to accept both over about a 2 or 3 year window.
Okay. Stacy, this is a live program right now. We're doing this live. So questions are coming in. People may not have tuned in from the very beginning. Okay. We had a question come in from a state school counselor. Okay. And the question was, what constitutes the redesigned SAT? I believe they're just asking why was it changed? Can you give a 30-second recap of what you said at the top?
Sure.
Thank you.
So our goal with the College Board is to really help ensure that we're doing our part to ensure that more students are graduating from high school ready to be successful in college. And so our goal with the redesign of the SAT was to focus the content on exactly the skills that students need to be successful in college, to be really transparent about that so that preparing for the SAT becomes preparing for success in college and preparing for success in high school.
Thank you. So, in my time here with the Howard County Public School System, I've heard of, my SAT was out of 1600, and then we went to the SAT 2400. Indeed. Where are we now?
With the redesign, we'll be back to 1600.
Back to 16.
So there are 2 sections with the redesigned SAT: the evidence-based reading and writing. It's the first section that's made up of a reading test and a writing test, writing and language test. Math section is the other section that's made up of a math test that has a calculator section and a non-calculator section. And then the essay will be given 3 scores separately from that 1600 scale for the students who choose to take the essay.
And now maybe you two can collaborate on this answer. My follow-up question would be, because we'll have very detailed score reports with the SAT. And so how can parents take what they learned there and then what they learn, and students, with PARC, and maybe cross-reference those 2 reports that they're receiving from these 2 assessments to see where they need to improve themselves or apply more attention to be college and career ready?
I think what you're going to see is that there's going to be some similarity between the PARC score reports and the SAT score reports. And they're actually, I've seen the design, particularly of the PSAT report, which I think is really, really good. I've seen the design of that one, and when I look at the design for the score reports for the PARC, there's a lot of similarities. Information about subscores, information about ranges and scales and so forth. And then teachers and administrators in schools will be able to actually look at item-by-item analysis of individual students in classrooms, as well as individual teacher classrooms, and determining what some of the strengths and weaknesses are in the instruction as part of the new standards and preparation for those new assessments. Now, that I think will certainly serve, particularly in the lower grades, will certainly serve as a segue into the work that College Board is expecting on the redesigned SAT.
We have a slide, and Stacey, I know you want to add something here. Slide number 3 may help put this into visual perspective. But go ahead, Stacy. You had something to add?
Sure. So I was just going to echo what Henry was saying, which is really over time we will figure out how the numbers work together, and I think that will take a little bit of time. What we'll have right away is the ability to compare across skills and say, are we getting, and I'm expecting that we'll see pretty consistent things around student strength areas, areas that need more focus, and I think that that will reinforce the so what of this, right? Which is not the number itself, but what are the next steps, and what should the students be focused on? So I expect that we'll see a lot of similarities, and frankly, where you don't, that is a really good area to dig into and say, okay, if we're seeing a difference between these two, what's going on, and let's dig in there and understand what's underneath that.
And I might add, we've never been able to do that before on any of our previous state assessments. So this is one of the positive aspects of the collaborations taking place nationwide and looking at state assessments and making sure that those state assessments align with these new standards, and they also align with these college placement exams.
Stacy, is there an unscored section of this test? Cammie told me there was. No, I'm kidding.
So when people talk about the unscored section of the current SAT, what we're really referring to there is the section that contains questions that we are pre-testing. So when you think about putting together an SAT, we don't just write the questions and throw them out there and say, hey, go to it, students. There's a long development process with a series of experts through design, through review panels. But one of the things that we do is we pre-test every question. And so we put a question out in front of several thousand students. We then take a look at the data that comes back from that. So that helps us determine difficulty, but it also lets us weed out if a question performs differentially. So if certain students are more able to answer a question than other students, we throw that question out. It never makes it onto an SAT. So there's some really important testing properties that come out of our ability to pre-test those items. So yes, we'll continue to pre-test. The format that takes and where those go will be slightly different, but there will be pre-test questions, and they could be on any section of the test.
But you should know that's standard practice in any assessment.
Yes, exactly.
We all field test questions during each administration of every assessment.
But that will happen when students sit down this spring to take the
Indeed.
SAT.
With
Will
the
they know that they're
re-administration.
answering questions that are unscored?
Typically, no.
Okay, good. Cammie, what's the process for applying for and qualifying for fee waivers?
Okay. Students who are receiving free and reduced meals can qualify for fee waivers. When you create a College Board account on the website and prepare to register, there's a link right there that says fee waivers available. You have to request one from your counselor in school. There's a code that you get that you put when you register. So see your counselor if you're in need or interested. Also, when you take a test with a fee waiver, you also qualify to receive 4 college application fee waivers. So it happens pretty automatically once you register. I believe then you get contacted with your waivers. I would also say when you create your College Board account as a student, students are the owners, and that's really important, both for which email address are you using, making sure that's consistent, but you can also check a box that says, I want my parent to get the information as well, and that I think is an enhancement, but that's a great way for students and parents to stay on the same page, because when the information starts coming back and forth, both about SATs, but also colleges, applications, all that stuff, it's really important for more than one set of eyes to be seeing that. So I would encourage students to check that box and include a parent email when they're registering.
And that point around the student account on the College Board account, I was talking earlier about the reporting portals that we're building out. So what we're doing here is moving off, you go one place for your PSAT, one place for your SAT. We are trying to pull that all together. So so when a student registers, I think the importance of registering and knowing this is your account and you own that account, the student will then be able to go back into that account over time. When they get their PSAT results in December, they'll see previous results down below. When they take the SAT in the spring, they will see what they did on the PSAT previously. So all that information will be together. That is the place that you go to Khan Academy. When you get your, if you've taken the SAT with the fee waiver and you get those 4 college application fee waivers, that's also there in your portfolio with your with your reports. So
Okay.
all of that is tied together.
Do you know if AP scores will also be there?
Not this year, but we are
Okay.
working on that. That
Okay.
is very much on the roadmap.
Great.
We've got about 20 minutes left
Okay.
in our program, so if you'd like to get in, make sure you do in the next 20 minutes. On Twitter, it's hashtag HCPSS Insight, or through email at insight@hcpss.org. All right, I'll throw this one out to the group. It's going back to, we're bouncing around, so we're going back to the reports and data and the results that we'll receive afterwards. Will it be differentiated and how between what the system receives, what the student receives, what counselors receive? The reports that each party is receiving, will they be different?
Well,
Do we know?
let me start with what
Mm-hmm.
we would like to emphasize here is particularly going as early as PSAT 8-9 and PSAT NMSQT. One of the things that we've really been promoting is the fact that information on student performance on those assessments can be used by schools and counselors in determining the potential for students in advanced placement courses. So we're really emphasizing the fact that there is a tool out there that will allow a counselor like Cammie to go in and look at a student's particular score and on the PSAT, and that score will help Cammie to make a decision as to whether or not that student should go into an AP class. Because one of the things that we found is that there's so many underrepresented populations of students who have the potential to enroll in an AP class, and those students are not in an AP class, and many of them don't know that they have that potential. So that's how we're really kind of emphasizing to our administrators, school administrators, and our counselors as a way of using that particular part of the suite of data that's coming out.
Parents will also have access to that, I believe. So
Yes.
parents, when they log on to the account, I think, and students should be able to see that AP potential information so they can make those decisions.
Right.
Okay, good. Yes.
In terms of the way we're designing the reports, we are driving towards consistency, ease of use, and as much as we can, action. Sort of taking all of that, what you used to have to
Across
find in
all
3
of them.
different places, and yes, and across all of them. So you'll see consistency with a PSAT 8-9, with what you report, with what you see in an SAT report.
Good.
And the differences between sort of what students see and what schools see is primarily an issue of roll-up, right? So a student sees all their direct information. If I'm a counselor looking at my school information, I can look at my school data. I can look at, I can then dive into a specific area and see what students have done.
We've got a question from Twitter that
Okay.
just came in, so let's attack this one. Will the SAT continue to be paper pencil, or will we be moving to a computer-based test?
In the near term, we will absolutely continue to offer the paper and pencil option. We have been working on creating also the digital version of the SAT. So we are right now planning to pilot test that in the fall of 2016. So from what students will see this spring, the March, May, June admins, that will be entirely paper and pencil. Beginning in the fall, we'll be working with some district and state partners to offer an equivalent digital version of the SAT. We think that we'll be dual mode for the foreseeable future, but that frankly depends on what folks are looking for.
Yeah,
so
you
we
measure
may
that.
move that
Okay.
sooner or slower depending on what folks are looking for.
Do you think, since the SAT is offered in schools, will we be using school computers, or will students go to college testing sites to take the test?
Administration-wise, I think that we will probably be reasonably consistent with what we're currently doing. So where schools are doing it during the school day, they'll be, using the school facilities. For the most part, most of our Saturday quote-unquote test centers are also schools,
Right.
The vast majority of them. I don't see us moving to the right now. We're not planning to move to something like a sort of Prometric center or a third-party center that's away from one of the schools. We feel like the way that it's being administered is the way it will continue to be.
Okay.
Another parent question. Yes, sir.
No.
Oh, okay.
I was just waiting for your question.
Another parent question. And there are students that have participated in prep services that were all geared towards the old test. So with that in mind, I'll read the question as is. Why don't we offer the old SAT until the end of this school year, 2015-2016, for the current juniors who already took the first SAT and are planning to take one take it one or two more times, especially if colleges don't superscore between the old and the redesigned SAT.
So in terms of determining a changeover date, with the way universities take this, with the way that we need to equate each of the forms, we needed to choose a single cutover date. And if you look at student test taking patterns, the place where you typically cut over is between January and March. So the majority of students taking the test in January are sort of the seniors taking it for the last time. When you get to March, the majority of students taking it are juniors taking it as sort of their first assessment. So the cleanest way and the cleanest time to make that cutover is with the March administration. That also lets students take it for the first time and not be right up against any admissions deadlines.
Right.
They can take it in the spring, they could take another one in the fall before their admissions deadline. So that's why we're cutting over when we did. In terms of students taking the current SAT, they have had a number of chances, and so we're hoping that they will have completed that by January.
So I would encourage, if they've been preparing as a junior on the old one, take it in January for sure. That's your last chance. But also the PSAT that you just took was the redesign. So if you're using that to your advantage at all, you've already taken one preparation test for the redesign. So you can certainly take both. I would just encourage that family to communicate with the college about, here's what we did, here's what we have, and how do you handle that?
Henry, how is the redesigned SAT different from the ACT?
Well, of course, with the ACT, you will find that the ACT measures large domains of skills in specific subject areas, in English, in math, in science, and in history. The new redesigned SAT, the biggest difference, though, is that there's a concentration in SAT on specific subjects, just to make it very simple, and that's not the case with the SAT or the redesigned SAT. It's primarily the reading and the writing and the math.
Okay.
I think they're actually more similar now than they were before,
Okay.
but you could probably talk more about that.
Well, certainly they're both achievement tests.
Right.
I think the key difference from a sort of actual test design is that ACT looks at a broad range of skills from a curriculum survey, whereas we have focused the SAT more tightly on a narrower band of skills and gone deeper.
Question came in, Stacy, for you. They have a lot of questions for Stacy. Will the new essay score be 800 possible points?
No, it will be 3 scores, a reading score, an analysis, and a writing score. Each of those, I believe, are on 2 to 12. So it's 2 readers that will give you a 1 to 6 on each of those. So you'll get 3 individual scores.
Oh, okay. Okay. What are relevant words in context? And what are some examples of relevant words in context?
So relevant words in context, we like to refer to this as throwing out the SAT word. So any of you who have had a child, a student studying for the current version of the SAT, the comment that I get the most often is, oh man, the SAT words. Like, you know, we're on our way to hockey practice and we're listening to SAT words. We are
Or
doing
the SAT word of the day. Or
Exactly.
That's the big one.
So what we're doing is saying those words that frankly aren't in the academic vocabulary, that won't get used over and over again, but that, you know, sort of just that create difficulty, getting rid of those. Instead, choosing to focus students on words they will use over and over again. These could be words like intense. These could be that, you know, frankly can change meaning depending on what the author does and what they're how they're using it. One of the things I like to use is pull up the Gettysburg Address and watch, which is a very short document. I'm always surprised each time I pull it up how short it is. But watch what he does with dedicate. He uses the word dedicate 6 or 7 times throughout, and the meaning changes slightly in each usage. And that is, I think, just a really classic and good example of what we mean by what is the author's context, how does the meaning change according to how he or she is using it.
Are we doing anything specifically to prepare students for these new words in context, or is that just part of our daily routine?
I think it's part of our daily routine, but I also think it's part of the new standards that teachers are teaching in the English language arts classes. because that whole idea, that whole concept is inherent in the new Maryland College and Career Ready standards. And so teachers are already teaching words in context as a part of the curriculum. And so I don't think that they will need to do anything different or anything extra, because that's a part of the daily instruction that's taking place in classrooms as early as grades 3, 4, and 5.
Mm-hmm. What kind of, Henry and Cammie, what kind of courses, what are some prerequisite courses that students perhaps should have taken in school to help prepare themselves for the SAT?
Well, I think with the English, the students are just taking the English that's required of them, whether it's English 9, English 10, English 11. With the math, and I'll let Stacy speak to this, because there may have been a focus with the math. The earlier questions we got were around what's the situation with geometry versus algebra 2. So with the math, what are you all recommending at the College Board?
So we don't have courses vary so much, so we don't make a sort of global recommendation, and I'll pass that to you. I think a strong Algebra 1 course focused on linear equations, moving to some of the more advanced concepts, certainly covers a wide range. I think some of what we see in Passport to Advanced Mathematics is typically covered in an Algebra 2 course, but that can vary.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Algebra 2, what we've seen on the prior SATs, and I think still mapping a lot to that, is completion of Algebra 2 is really when you've had the best preparation, including geometry, because I think there are some trigonometric concepts that are on the new test.
Right.
So if you're in trig or math analysis here in Howard County, those are going to be helping you be better prepared. So in our county, Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2 are your best preparation. Taking the SAT at the end of Algebra 2 is probably your best setup. But like I said, if you're in trig or math analysis, then I would take it again, because you're still continuing to gain that knowledge. But like Henry said, the English, trying to take advanced English courses will probably better prepare you, but taking our regular English classes are your best preparation.
Right. In Park, students were able to use some digital tools, calculators, rulers, those sort of things. If students begin using computers to take this test, will there be any of those digital tools coming their way? Is that in the plan?
So in the immediate future, we will seek to make the experience as equivalent as possible, so that if a student's taking out a paper and pencil, the student is taking it digitally, that they have a very similar experience. So yes, there's a calculator section. Yes, there would be calculators available. Where there's a tool that wouldn't change the construct. So if a student can highlight or make notes, and we want to make that available in a digital context, that would be something we would do. If it's a sort of tool that gives a student an advantage, would be less likely to do that.
We've got about 5 minutes left, so we'll rapid fire a few more questions here at the end. We've talked a lot about math and English. Science, history, social studies, will they be included somehow in the test? Maybe Cammie can.
Yeah, I think they're going to be included, and I'm sure you guys can add to it, but there's not a specific section. Like the ACT has a specific section on science. There's not a specific section, but I think the idea is to infuse the concepts that are offered in science and social studies, particularly in the informational graphics. So you might be in the math section doing a math question, but the graphic that you're looking at is about science or about social studies. Or if you're in the reading section, one of the texts might be from a social studies document.
Okay.
So
speaking of documents, we've heard about founding documents, and you just told me to go read the Gettysburg Address. So do I need to have background in the Gettysburg Address before I show up to take the SAT?
No, there is no background knowledge needed. What we have done is said very explicitly, there will absolutely be questions that are based on authentic historical text. We feel like that it is important as part of what students are doing in terms of deep reading and a command of evidence to be able to dig into those authentic documents. And so we will very explicitly have those sorts of authentic documents in every form of the SAT, just as we will have very explicitly a science context in the reading passages, in the math concepts, et cetera. And that's where we will pull out the analysis in science and analysis in social studies cross-test scores, which we'll provide back. So what that will give teachers and students a sense for is across reading, writing, and math, in the context that was science, in the context that was history or social studies, how is the student able to engage those skills?
And let's keep in mind that with the introduction of the new standards here in Maryland, we introduced this whole idea of disciplinary literacy across the curriculum. So it's quite, it's quite easy for an art teacher or a PE teacher or a science teacher or a social studies teacher to begin to help students to understand that the literacy that is found in those courses is literacy that can help them in all of their areas in preparation for all of these different assessments that they will need to take over the course of their high school careers.
Two more. Okay. So, Stacy, we've heard the new test claims to use text from, quote, ongoing great global conversation about freedom, justice, and human dignity. Will there be any politically biased slants to any questions in the test?
We do our best to say no, absolutely. I mean, as you engage in those texts, I think people's perceptions on questions can vary, but we, as part of our process, go through a series of reviews to ensure that we are that we're not introducing any of those biases.
Cammie, what are some of the things that we're offering here in Howard County to help students prepare for taking the SAT?
Sure. So I think, like we've said many times, preparation in your classes is really your best opportunity for preparation. But we do have the SAT prep classes, so when you're preparing to register for classes soon, actually in December, talk to your counselor, talk to your parents about, is there room in my schedule? Should I be taking an SAT prep class at school? Some of our schools offer after-school SAT prep classes, and you can see your counselor for those. We do have the Math Support Center online, where you can get a lot of resources.
Terrific.
And one other thing,
Yes,
let's
sir.
not forget that once the students who've been administered the new PSAT
Absolutely.
Last week, they will have access to that information,
That will be a
and
resource.
the Khan Academy will be a resource for them once they register.
And I'm sure as counselors learn more about that report and start seeing them, we'll be able to help, and teachers will be able to help too,
Right.
kind of understand what all that means and how we can help individual students prepare.
Well, that's all the time that we have on this program to answer your questions. But if you continue to have questions on this topic, please feel free to submit them to us through Twitter at #HCPSSinsight or email insight@hcpss.org, and we will respond to your question. Before we go, I'd like to thank all of you who joined us and submitted a question. I'd also like to thank Dr. Henry Johnson, Stacy Caldwell, and Cammie Wagner for taking the time to ensure the students, parents, and school counselors are prepared for the College Board's redesigned suite of assessments. Finally, thank you to the outstanding team of people we have working here behind the scenes of HCPSS Insight. I encourage school counselors to speak with your students about the changes to the tests and the supports that are in place to help them be as successful as they can possibly be. So on behalf of Dr. Henry Johnson, Stacy Caldwell, Cammie Wagner, and everybody that participated on HCPSS Insight, I'm Brian Bassett. Thanks for joining us.